Hey! Happy Sunday evening to you all. We are approaching the end of the weekend, but there's still time for some fun. But I guess one way of looking at it is that it may be the end of the weekend, but from tomorrow it's the start of a brand new week, and it may be the best week that you ever have. That's probably about as deep as I'm going to get this evening. Let's see if we've got anybody with us. So good evening, Maz. Thanks for coming along and joining. I'm hoping that more people will come along as the show proceeds. But I think it's just you and me right now doing the fandango. So yes, good evening, everyone. And I've got to tell you about my week, first of all, just to kind of explain this evening's show, because we're here on live podcast 010, so we've hit the double figures. Yay! Hold on, I need a round of applause for that one. Yay! We've hit double figures. That was a bit of a sad round of applause. Let's try that again. No, it's still really sad. That's better. Yay! We've made it to 10. And the title of this evening's episode podcast is the best of the thought-provoking movies. And the reason why I've decided to do this tonight, because I really haven't had a great deal of time this week. I've been really quite busy, both with my day job and also, so this week I was on the Star Trek review with Maz. So hopefully you guys got to check that one out. And I've been editing all week because I'm working on the next Underground Paradox episode. I think I mentioned that last time, or when I was on the Monty Zone, and I shared where I'd gone out and done some footage. It's a ufology investigation that I've done in Bude. So I'm been editing that furiously this week and got about 10 minutes into the video. So there's been a lot going on. So I thought, rather than not do a show this evening, to actually just pull something together. And it's actually given me a bit of an idea, because originally, I think in a post that I did on our community thread, I said I was going to be covering all sorts of genres this evening. Well, when I then did that and started putting all the media together for it, I was kind of like, ooh, if I try to do all of that, it's going to be a really, really long podcast. And as you know, I try to keep these G-Star Vaults to around about an hour. So instead, I've decided to, this is like part one, and we'll do some more best of the thought-provoking movies in the future. We'll cover a lot of the different categories of all areas of the paranormal, so like supernatural and cryptids. But this evening's episode is going to be about best of my thought-provoking videos from Ufology. So although the title is the best of thought-provoking, it's a bit of a bold statement, but they're some of my favorites that I want to kind of review and discuss with you guys. Now, a lot of them you may already be very, very familiar with, and some of them you may not, or it may just inspire you to go and watch them again. Now, throughout this evening's podcast, in the comments, please do let me know what some of your favorite films are from this genre of paranormal, which would be ufology. If there is any that you can think of that I don't mention this evening. But I have also got one Rotten Tomatoes film that I'm going to talk about as well just shortly, because you've got to throw a Rotten Tomatoes in there. Evening to KD Fitness as well. Best thought-provoking movie for KD Fitness's Superman. I'm sure it is KD Fitness. I'm sure it is. But, you know, which Superman film are you referring to, though? The original or some of the revamps of the franchise? Let us know. More comments, all the better. On that note, if you are here with us live or watching, you know, on catch up, as we could call it, then please do give this stream and this podcast a like, and please, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, please share. And I say it a lot, sharing is caring. And the reason why I say that is because it is, because if you think of one other person that you think might like the kind of content that we do here on The Vault, then if you share it with just that one person, that has a massive effect. And you can really support us on our journey to try and get to 1,000 subscribers. We're getting there slowly but surely, but we need some more help. So over to you guys. Please give us some love. Thank you very much for the support. Okay, so and then I was just going to give a bit of an explanation of when I think the next Underground Paradox video will be out, and I'm really hoping for, unfortunately it's probably going to be in about another 2 weeks. I don't feel bad about that, because at the end of the day, the majority of the Underground Paradox episodes are like short documentaries. They are about 45 minutes to an hour long. So, you know, it kind of takes time to put together, and to do it right, you know, it does take that time. So, but just to give you a bit of a heads up, and that, as I said, is me out where I did an overnight stay doing a ufology investigation in Bude in Cornwall. So watch out for that one. And if you go to the description of this video, you can find the link to the Underground Paradox. And if you haven't subscribed there already, please do. I'm just going to say one last plug, and that is, I meant to bring it up on a banner, but I completely forgot to. So, but you know, if you've got pen and paper ready, just you know, whack this down. And that is actually, let me just quickly write one up. Give me 2 seconds. All good fun and games. Just perfect preparation. There you go. Almost ready. And then I can bring it up on the screen, and that might help some of you, especially if you're watching this on catch up. It might be good for you just to scribble this one down. Let's save that, and then let's show it. Boom, there you go. So I keep saying this on the episodes that I'm working on the Underground Paradox, but it's a great way for you to reach out to me here on the Vault as well. But that is an email. So it's the ugp@myyahoo.com. If you want to reach out to me, where I really plug that on the Underground Paradox is to ask people to share their experiences with me, and things that they might have seen, whether they've got some footage or audio stuff, or even if it's just a recount of what you saw in any sort of genre of the paranormal. Or if you just want to reach out and just say hello and give us some feedback on either the Underground Paradox or the Vault, and what content you like and don't like, great way to reach out to me. So that's the ugp@myyahoo.com. So there you go. I've never really shared that on here, I don't think, or if I have, it's been a while. Right, let's get into this then, and let's start this reviewing the best of my thought-provoking movies in ufology. And as we go through, please do give me your comments on what you think about these films, if you've seen them. And I've got some special little backdrops ready, so you can probably guess. I'm doing this in chronological order of age of film, but they're not necessarily the order in which I viewed them. And I'll explain that as we go through. But obviously, the first film that I want to bring to highlight, and that is one of my favorites, and it is who was Sean can't hang around. He's going to have a Guinness, but he says, have a good stream. Thank you for popping along. Just before you go, Sean, don't forget to give that thumbs up. That'd be absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so first film, 1977, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, before I get into kind of reviewing this film, and I have got some pictures, and later on got some gifts as well, which might help. But before I go into sort of kind of reviewing this film, I just want to kind of explain my journey with it. And that was that, so it came out in 1977. So I was only the tender age of 2 years old when it came out. So I obviously didn't watch it when it first circulated in the cinemas, etc. But I can remember when I was about 10 or 11, and this is when I didn't live in Plymouth, but I was visiting Plymouth. And I think, obviously it was around the time that I'd watched E.T. And like a lot of kids, I was a big fan of E.T. So I think it was either my uncle or auntie said to me, oh, if you really love E.T. and I'm sure you'll really love this film. So they put it on for me and sat me down to watch it. And gotta be honest, pre a certain time in my life, I was not really interested very much in general science fiction, or certainly alien stories or things like that. I've said this before on podcasts, that I was more into kind of things like Airwolf, A-Team, Maverick, all sorts of sort of action, a lot of hero stuff, but not really science fiction and not aliens. And then obviously there was a time in my life that I had an experience, which I feel, whether that experience, or I usually say potential experience, so I should keep to consistency, a potential experience. And basically, whether that experience was real or not, it certainly shaped then my future interests, and brought me to ufology, really. But the thing is, I still didn't watch it after my experience because things were a bit difficult for me. This sort of thing I wouldn't watch. And so I probably actually didn't first watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind and really loved the film until probably sort of early 90s would have probably been the first time that I was hitting that, sort of around about 18, 19, 20 years old. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but definitely later on in life. And as soon as I then watched it and really kind of then saw it for the fantastic, amazing film it is, I then became obsessed with it. And what I think is really beautiful about this film, and getting a little bit now into sort of reviewing it, it's obviously, for those of you that don't know, it's directed by Steven Spielberg. As I said, it's 1977 American science fiction drama film. And the brilliant thing about this film is that you can watch it today, and the sort of special effects, a lot of that really still stand the test of time. And you've got to think, it's 48 years old. It's almost as old as I am. It's almost 50 years old. And so you can obviously watch remastered versions of this film now. But I'm so obsessed with this film. My husband bought me a present, I think it was a birthday present a few years back, a couple of years ago, to a trip down to Cornwall, and to watch this in a special cinema, remastered, and just totally cool going back and watching it in a cinema. And it just is aged like fine wine. It's just such a good film. The special effects, obviously some of them, but generally across the board, you just think, wow. It's a bit like Alien by Ridley Scott and Aliens by James Cameron. Some of these big directors are really good at creating films that really age well, and the special effects certainly hold their own. But just to give a bit of an overview of the story, if you're not familiar, it's basically all about these abductions that go on. So you've got the main character, which is played by Richard Dreyfuss, And the film depicts the story of him. His name as the character is Roy Neary. And he's an everyday blue-collar worker in Indiana whose life changes after he has an encounter with an unidentified flying object. And Gillian, a single mother whose 3-year-old son was also abducted by a UFO. And here's a great shot of that moment where the young boy is walking out, just drawn, really interested, drawn to the sort of toys. They pull him out to the door, and this is where he gets abducted. But, there's just some great, like, you can still watch this film today, and some of the effects just look, you're not wincing like you are with even some films now that are like just only 10 years old, and you're kind of like, oh, special effects, bit of a wince. But it's this story about, and Richard Dreyfuss, who, like, as I say, is this blue collar worker, has this experience, and then during the film becomes more and more and more obsessed with these kind of unconscious impulses that he's having and obsessions. And he does all these sorts of crazy things, and he gets so obsessive that his family end up leaving him. He's sort of starts building this great big thing that looks like a makeshift mountain in the middle of his home. Really starts losing the plot. And I can remember watching it, as I said, when I first watched it, when my auntie and uncle put me in front of it, I just really disliked his character. I can remember thinking, oh, wait, I can understand why he's funny. I think he's stupid. He's being really, really silly, and it really frustrated me, all the things he does. But, as I grew older, and after there was a sort of, a change in my life, I came to appreciate the concept of the story. What's really interesting about this film is, actually, just before I get to that, let's go over to some comments, because it's been a while since I've... and we've got some new people in the studio. So, evening to Kevin. Supposed to be based on a true story, parts of it, and some of the people. And then Kevin's comment, Alien is a scary film. It truly is. It's one of the classics, good science fiction horror for sure. So, and then what did Katie Fitness say there? Yes, Maverick, love it. No, we're not talking about Top Gun, although I know you could talk about Top Gun for days, Katie Fitness. And now evening to Courtney. Good to have you along. Evening to you, buddy. So, what I was saying about strange about this film is, if you've watched one of the story times that I've done, Betty and Barney Hill. Betty and Barney Hill was one of the first proper catalogued, reported cases of abduction, and that only happened in, I think, 1965. I want to say. I should remember. I've done the story time, but yeah, it was around the sort of mid 60s. So when you think about it, the fact that this film slammed out in 1977. And it really encompasses some really key, stereotypical, known, repeatable things that people have reported around that time, certainly around in the sort of, late 60s, 70s, early 80s. Common things that, so it's quite clever that they got this out so quick. But, I still say that the special effects on this film just really, and especially if you get to watch a remastered version, it's really, really, they definitely have enhanced it as well. So that sort of is a bit of icing on the cake to giving it some more age and more legs. But, the way that in which this film accumulates, I just think it's a lovely connection. If conceptually, if this was how it was to roll out and to happen, and contact with an alien species, just the element where they bring music into it, and that iconic tune, which I wish I had a sample of it to play for you, but I'm sure you all know it, and I'm sure you all know the film. But it's I was just looking at that comment. Sorry, I should be looking at the comments on here, but I keep going to my tablet. But yes, Courtney's made a really good point there. There's a couple of cameos in here actually, because I actually think Spielberg features in it at some point as well, and there's a couple of other famous. And one of the main characters actually is played by somebody who is it's the French guy, and he's actually in real life quite a significant figure in the history of ufology. But what Courtney has said there is that J. Allen Hynek does cameo in Close Encounters, and he's the one who created the scale in the first place of first, second, and third kind. Fourth and fifth came a bit later. Yeah, Jacques Vallée, that's it. Yeah, well done, Courtney. He's my in-house encyclopedia of of names of people. Always helps me out. And what's this comment that we got from Kevin? Would you go with them at the end, like some of them do in the film, like some sort of exchange student? Hell yeah! There isn't a doubt in my mind that I would be there, popping straight into that spaceship. Yeah, I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't. I would feel absolutely it'd be one of those things that if you didn't, I just think, you just regret it for the rest of your life. By the way, let me know in comments whether you would. That's a really great question, Kevin. So Kevin's question to everyone, let us know, would you board the ship, or would you have been hesitant and not taken the risk? It'd be interesting to find out everybody's thoughts on that. So yeah, that's my first one. And as I said, it is the oldest one that I'm gonna sort of be discussing this evening. It was, as I said, it was first released in 1977. Probably didn't get over here to the UK because back then everything was so much more slower. So probably didn't hit our shores until probably about the late 70s, like 79 maybe. I don't know if anybody can recall watching it the first time round. Let me know. But yeah, it's certainly the oldest film that I'm going to discuss this evening. But it's not the first in order that I watched, because there's probably some of these other films that I watched first. What I was going to say, which I forgot to say earlier, is as I go throughout this evening, if there's other films that I don't mention that you find that is definitely, but what I want to do at the end is I want everybody to say, out of the films that I've featured, if there was like a sort of desert island scenario where you could only take one of them, which one would you take? So we'll wait to the end of the show on that one. But let's get straight on to the second film. So what I need to do first is change the backdrop to give you a clue of which is the next film that we are discussing. And again, this isn't an order of watch, but this is an order of age. So the next one that we're featuring, and let me just go to this one, is this great film called Fire in the Sky. And this is definitely a strong favorite of mine. And let me just bring up some information on it for me to share with you guys. So Fire in the Sky is a 1993 American science fiction drama film directed by Robert Lieberman and adapted by Tracy Trome. It's based on Travis Walton's book, The Walton Experience, which describes an extraterrestrial abduction. The film stars D.B. Sweeney as Walton and one of my favourite actors, Robert Patrick, as his best friend and future brother-in-law, Mike Rogers. And it was at its time, it was kind of had mixed reactions. When I say mixed reactions, I mean critical mixed reactions and box office. Let me know in comments if you've watched it. Evening Wookie. So just to give you a bit of backstory of this film. So again, I've got some pictures to share. Basically, it's set based on a true story. Now, as I said, it comes from the book of Travis Walton, The Walton Experience. If you read the book versus the film, there is categorically different elements to it. In the film, the interactions with the aliens are quite horrific and really, really jarring. But in Travis Walton's own sort of retelling of the incident, it isn't, to my memory, from what I can recall, it isn't as violent or as aggressive as the film makes out. I think the filmmakers did that really to kind of, fuel the story, keep the audience on the edge of their seat. But there is a lot of details that were in the film that obviously this took place in real life in 1975. So we were at an age where, media were involved. A lot of it was documented, recorded. But the plot of the film is that on November the 5th, 1975, in Snowflake, Arizona, logger Travis Walton and his co-workers, so there was about 6 of them, I think: Mike Rogers, Alan Dallas, David Whitlock, Greg Hayes, and Bobby Codill, head to work in the White Mountains. They're loggers, basically. So they're going to work in the White Mountains. Driving back towards town that night, the loggers see an unearthly light in the distance through the tree line. Investigating, they encounter an unidentified flying object. Curious, as you can see in this picture, Walton gets out of the truck to examine closer, only for the hovering object to react and strike him with a bright light that you saw on the main movie poster. And then it hurled him several feet backwards. Fearing Walton had been killed, the terrified loggers escaped from the scene. Roger decides to go back in his pickup truck to the spot to retrieve Walton, but he is nowhere to be found. Returning to the town to report the incident, the loggers are met with skepticism by investigators, Sheriff Blake Davis and Lieutenant Frank Waters. Waters, realizing that there was a great deal of tension between Dallas and Walton, and that the boorish Dallas has a criminal record, suspects foul play, and a belief that quickly spreads to the rest of the town, leaving the loggers as social outcasts. Now, bearing in mind, this is all true, this all happened, whether you believe the part about Travis Walton himself being abducted, this all did happen. After a large search party turns up, no sign of Walton, the loggers are offered the chance to take lie detector tests. And they obviously all stick to this story that they encountered this alien ship. Now, the majority of their lie detector tests all came out saying that they were all telling the truth, except for one that was initially inconclusive. And that was actually the guy Dallas, who, because of his previous criminal record, the guy who did the lie detector test thought he was possibly nervous because of that back history. And that's what made the results inconclusive on his test. But I do believe, if I'm right, later down the line, he did it, had another lie detector test, and it came through as, again, him telling the truth. But the interesting thing and the twist of the story is that Travis Walton turns back up. But in the meantime, you kind of don't know what's happened to him. And then as he comes back, he starts to have flashbacks of what's been happening in the 5 days that he's been missing. And again, remember, all the sheriffs, rescue parties, search parties were involved, searching all the White Mountains area for 5 days, couldn't find him. And then he turns up naked at a petrol sort of gas station, as they'd call it in the States. And basically his friends find him, and as he's recovering from the incident, we start getting flashbacks of what actually happened to him. So I've got some pictures to share. It's quite horrific. He goes through all these like hideous experiments. There's some great features in here where it kind of there's the stereotypical image of the alien grey, and they sort of drop in a sort of exclamation that's actually a suit that they have to wear so that they can breathe in our atmosphere, and this is what they kind of look like underneath that suit. So pretty similar to a grey, but not grey, like a pinkish complexion, more human looking eyes, but yeah, so it's a great sort of little thing that they introduced. But we get to see all the horrific, very graphic stuff that happened to Travis Walton in the film, that but in real life, that graphic stuff is not so much the case. In fact, it was more of a sort of peaceful interaction between Travis Walton in his book as he relays his experience. But as I said, they probably hyped this up and made it a lot more violent for the essence of the story in the film. How the story evolves is that, even when he comes back, everybody's life is messed up from this. Already certain characters, I say characters, real life people like Mike Rogers, got separated from his wife and children. That's the character played by Robert Patrick. This is showing him like years after, when they're all still decades later, trying to come to terms with it. Because, again, Travis Walton didn't come out and really hugely get involved in publicizing this story till much later down the road, because I guess, he was severely traumatized. Again, there was doctors around when he was found at this Hyber gas station. He was catalogued as being extremely dehydrated and severely traumatized, and hadn't had any food. So, it's not like the guys would have done this to kind of create a hoax or a bit of a crazy spin to create some money, because actually for the majority of them this kind of ended up ruining big parts of their lives. But they get over it in the end, and Mike Rogers and Travis Walton make their amends, and become talk again and able to reminisce on the things that happened. So it's a pretty good story, and the fact that it's based on real life events, or at least depicted real life events, makes it very interesting. But don't go into this, if you've never watched this film before, don't go into it thinking that it is an exact blow by blow depiction of Travis Walton's book. It's definitely inspired. So let's go back to some comments that we've got. In the movie, when they put that plastic like sheet over him to restrain him, it still gives me nightmares. Yeah, I actually get the worst thing is, and I was going to share a photo of it, is when they actually then punch the holes through that plastic thing, and then they put the thing and putting all this like oil and gunk. It looks like motor oil in his mouth, and then putting all this metal tubes down his mouth. It's just awful. Mel Gibson was a scary one, but I don't know what that one's called. And then I think Maz has answered that question kindly for Kevin. Signs, so you never know, that one might come up. Mel Gibson's one is Signs. Wookie again chipping in. Everybody in the community helping each other answer the question. Book of Communion, yep. There's one that we're going to be talking about in a minute, which is connected to a big character as well. He was a bit stupid that night, Travis, going to the ship like he did. I don't know, if you watch the film and if that's how it actually unfolded. Again, I have to hold my hands up and say that would probably be me. I probably wouldn't be able to help myself. I don't know. That I always watch that bit, and I think, yeah, that's probably what I would do. What we've got here, that's the one, Signs. Yep. Oh, evening, Mickey. Hiya. And then what we got here, I was stopped by the police on my way to watch this movie. I was on my way to the High Wycombe Cinema Complex, got pulled over in Abersham for speeding. What, as you were trying to go and watch this movie, Fire in the Sky? Let us know, Wookie. That is a funny story. So that's my second pick of the evening and recommendation if you haven't watched that film. Again, from a sort of effects point of view, it does surprise me, because you'd be surprised the budget to make Close Encounters, given that it was 1977 and this film was made in 1993, but the two had the same budget. So the budget for Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1997 was 19 million, and the budget for this was 19 million as well, which does surprise me, because although there is a lot of, probably for its time, good like effects used, and especially staging effects, like when they do the whole thing with Travis Walton in where there's no gravity, that's quite clever. Obviously probably done by harness work, which for its time in 1993 was very well scrubbed out. Sorry, I'm getting into the detail of the effects now, but generally, a lot of the scenes that they show whilst he was aboard the ship, they kind of do repeat a lot of it, and kind of, because it's done in quick flashbacks, they do go back and repeat some of it as well. So, but most of it is just, your typical US in the woods, in the forest, in their pickup trucks. And so I can't really understand why it was such a high budget to make the film, but that is the truth of it. But mixed reactions critically, but I think it's one that's it's one of those slow starters, and it came in under the radar. And I definitely think, it's a great film to watch, great entertainment, but do look at it sort of 50-50, because it's based on a true story, but it is entertainment at the same time. So yeah, that was my second film, Fire in the Sky. But I didn't watch that in the second order. In fact, Fire in the Sky probably didn't come around to watching that until probably the early 2000s. Again, I didn't watch it on its first run out. There is a lot of films of this sort of nature where it features abduction, where for me, I kind of have to G myself up to watch it, really. Okay, or like prep myself to watch it to make sure I'm not too traumatized. Anyway, so that was the second film. Now let's go on to my third offering of this evening. And I think a couple of people in our audience have already mentioned it, but let me bring up the backdrop. And so here we go. So yeah, my next one that we're going to discuss is Contact. And I've talked about this in one of the previous podcasts before, but got the opportunity to go into a little bit of detail, more detail this evening. But Contact, it was made in 1997. So again, it's now a good 28 years old. American science fiction drama film in Panavision. So that was kind of quite new for its time. Co-produced and directed by Robert Zemeckis. And do you know what? He's a great director. And there's just some brilliant, like whatever you think about the genre, the storyline, the whatever, you got to respect some of the amazing film work in this and camera work. It's based on a 1985 novel by Carl Sagan. So that's what we've talked about in the past. And Carl Sagan is definitely a name that I hope to cover more on the channel going forward. But the story is, and again, if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure the majority of you have, it stars Jodie Foster as Dr. Eleanor Ellie Arroway, a SETI scientist who finds evidence of extraterrestrial life and is chosen to make first contact. And so let me bring up some pictures and just explain the story. So, it first sets out with her kind of really trying to be taken seriously, really, and get some decent satellite time, and so she goes to the satellite array in Mexico first of all, and then gets her funding taken away from there, and the scientific community won't take her very seriously. Along the way, she meets the lovely Matthew McConaughey, who is a priest, but not a priest, but he's a man of God, I guess, and has his belief, but his belief isn't in kind of, that sort of churchy kind of approach, but more, I guess, free running and fluid. But yeah, really sort of romantic subplot kind of evolves between those two. But as Dr. Arroway makes her way around all these different places where she uses the arrays, the satellite arrays, she kind of gets known as the high priestess of the desert for all the crazy stuff that she does. And but eventually picks up a signal. And I'm just going to stop and just talk about something else for just a moment, because actually what's interesting is that this, as I said, it's inspired by Carl Sagan's book, but Carl Sagan was inspired by this one particular event that happened, and some of you may or may not know it, but it's called the WOW signal. And this was a strong narrowband radio signal detected on August the 15th, 1977 by Idaho State University Big Ear Radio Telescope in the United States, then used to support the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius and bore expected hallmarks of extraterrestrial origin. However, the entire signal only lasted for 72 seconds. And because of the way in which it was recorded, There is, like, again, I'll be completely transparent. There's those that don't believe that that they will offer and present other explanations as to what that signal was. Space disturbance, there's things that are coming up all the time to try and explain it, but it's kind of split people down the middle. Some believe that it was maybe something to be taken seriously, and others just think that it wasn't. But you can go away and research that. It's called the wow signal if you weren't familiar with it, but it kind of was a big part of kind of inspiring this film that we're talking about, Contact. And in this signal that they receive, it's got mathematical origin, and they delve into it a lot more, and there's embedded within the mathematical messages. Once they work out this primer, they find all these details and instructions on how to build this machine, which they end up building. And the first one, it's a horrid part of the story where this guy who's always been, pushing Dr. Arroway's career down, he kind of gets the front running seat to go on this machine. But then these religious, crazy people kind of attack the first machine, and it explodes, and everybody that was on it gets killed. But in secret, the government have used subfunding and created a second one, which then Dr. Arroway gets to be the person in the pilot seat, and we get to watch her go through this experience of what this machine does. And it takes her through like a wormhole to various areas of space, and then she ends up becoming unconscious, and then eventually ends up being in this destination, which looks like one of her children's, one of the drawings from her as a child, and has a conversation with her dad, who has long passed, because she only had her dad as a child around, and he died when she was young. I forgot to explain that at the beginning, but he was always encouraging her in her studies of her fascination with radio signals and her questions about outer space. So she has a discussion with him, and then she gets thrown back, but gets told that the whole thing only lasted like a matter of a few seconds, even though it felt like hours to her. And it's really interesting. So let me know. Let's pick up with comments, because some of you guys have probably already been talking about it. I think that's Wookie with the humor. Wow, yeah, the wow signal. Like some crop circles, they have mathematics in some of them. Yep, true, Kevin, and we're going to talk about some crop circles in a minute. The argument is it would have been a repeat signal if intentionally broadcasted by an extraterrestrial origin. I guess that's one way of looking at it. But the actual reality is that we send out signals all the time that can be picked up by other planets, but they're not necessarily repeating signals, and they wouldn't necessarily feature again. Like, I'll stream this now, but I then won't be streaming it on repeat. So, again, there's lots of many ways of looking at it, but I guess, I'm just trying to inspire some interest in it, and go and do your own research and formulate your own opinions on it. Evening, Tavi. Lovely to have you along. Please do give me a like. Give me that thumbs up. I'd love it. Thanks, Tavi. Great to see you. Oh, yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for all your comments, and keep them coming. Absolutely awesome. So that was my third film, Contact. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop in my Rotten Tomatoes. So let me go back to my initial layout while I talk about this one. Bring me back into there. Okay, and let's get rid of Kevin's comment. And so I'm just going to share this picture, because I haven't done a backdrop for this one, because this is, as I said, this is my Rotten Tomato. And I've been waiting for ages to have a bit of a rant about this one. But it's a film that, well, I guess, let me bring up the picture first. And some of you guys then in chat can tell me, oh, have I got a picture? I thought I had saved a picture of it somewhere. Oh, yes, there it is. Sorry, I'm looking for a different color. So you guys in comments can let me know if you've seen this one. Oh, let me get out of the oh no, let's just go full screen and let's bring picture in picture. Oh, do you know, typically I've got, there we go. So The Fourth Kind, this film's called, stars Mila Djokovic from sort of Fifth Element and Resident Evils. Let me know in comments if you've seen this film. This film is my Rotten Tomatoes because this film absolutely gets on my nerves. Yes, it is the one that's set in Alaska, Courtney. So Courtney's come straight in with a comment there about it. It is the one that's set in Alaska. Now, the way in which this film is set, and this is what annoys me about it. Now, I know there's lots of films out there that do similar, but they go one step further on this, which I think is absolutely unnecessary. And for me, it's one of those things that I just think stuff like this pollutes people's perception of what people that are interested in the evidence or researching or investigating this kind of genre. And so at the beginning of the film, you get Mila Djokovic coming on screen very awkwardly, out of character, at the start of the film, giving a speech about telling us about how this film is a dramatic depiction of real life events. And throughout the film, they will feature footage from the real life interviews and investigations and hypnosis. And it's all about this Dr. Abigail Tyler. And she is a psychologist who works. And throughout the movie, sorry, I haven't got any pictures because, again, I didn't want to waste too much time on this one. I just wanted to have a bit of a rant. Throughout the movie, they kind of then have, as I say, these inserted bits where it's meant to be the original interviews with people involved in this whole thing. And it's all about abduction, alien abduction. And as I said, she goes on screen and sort of protests about and says, you know, prepare yourself, you know, this is, and throughout the whole film they do it in that sort of style, and it's not, this is absolutely not a true story, never happened, not even inspired on sort of true events. And you know, in one breath, like the actors that they use, so the person that they use to play Dr. Abigail Taylor in the real life interviews is an English actress, and she's terrible, absolutely terrible. And even if you for 1 minute wanted to get into the whole fantasy of believing that everything that Mila told you at the beginning of the film was real, from almost the first inserts of the supposed real interviews, you're going, oh my god, that could never be real. And then you're really confused. The first time I watched this, I was like really confused because I thought, oh geez, this is exciting, like what a thing, they brought the actor out, you know, she's not no small name, Mila Djokovic, to speak in front of camera. Awkward start to the film with the actress, you know, speaking to us, breaking down the third wall, or fourth wall I should say, sorry. And then like 5 minutes into the film, you're kind of like, that's not real. What are you going on about? And then you go and do your Google and you go, yeah, it isn't real. And it just, I don't know. Let me know in chat if you've watched this and what you think of it. If you haven't watched it, if you want to have an annoying evening, by all means, go and enjoy. But for me, it's a definite one that I think, you know, it kind of just does damage to, I personally feel, the genre, because I believe there's room to enter into fantasy. Like I've already reviewed Fire in the Sky. I believe there's room to take inspired potential true events and, you know, add a bit of drama, because, you know, you got, at the end of the day, you've got to put bums on seats. You've got to make cinema tickets and monies to fund making the film, right? So we've got to be realistic. They need to hype it up a little bit, and I'm not opposed to that, but this is just, even if they wanted to do that, like, at least, oh my god, do it well. So on all counts, that film flops for me. And it actually, if you go and Google it, it is actually given a really bad Rotten Tomatoes rating, as, you know, one of the lowest scores that you can receive on through that scoring network. So yeah, but I just thought I would discuss that as my my Rotten Tomatoes. So I've just got one more film to cover with you, to talk about this evening. Again, it is definitely one of my favorites, and I'll explain some of the emotional sort of stuff behind this. Well, not emotional really, but it's more well, let me explain. So here we go. So some of you were talking about it earlier on, helping each other out, remembering the film. Yeah, couldn't have my top thought-provoking around the whole ufology, alien contact subject without talking about science. And I'll tell you first and foremost, before we even get into the story and the background of science, why I am a fan of this film. I'm a fan of Night Shyamalan, who's the director of this film. He did Sixth Sense and a lot of other films that are really, really good. I can't think of that other one about the wind that's really, really good. But yeah, so, but there's other films outside of this genre that I really, really love, like Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, all adaptions of, done by the same director, all adaptions of Stephen King novels, sorry. And the reason why I love those films, I kind of love the pace. Sometimes when a director can really sit in the pocket of just moving the story along at just a really relaxed pace, and I really like that. And sometimes it doesn't need to be all fireworks and craziness, and I think you really get into the nuances of those quiet, subtle moments, and I think this is one of those films that does that in a screaming way. Some of you guys earlier on were saying that you found this one scary. There's elements of it I think are clever, but I certainly don't. For the best part, even the first time I watched it, I didn't really find it scary because, again, it's like a warm blanket, this film. I could definitely, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, grab a throw and sit down and watch this film because it's just a nice film to kick back, chill out and relax to. So that's my sort of personal kind of review of it. But, I just think it's got some clever facets to it, this film. But anyway, Signs is a 2002 film, so it is the most recent and probably out of all these films, probably the last one that I did watch, to be honest with you. But the actual order of what I probably watched films was Contact, Contact, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Fire of the Sky, and then Signs. That's the kind of order that they came into my world. I've obviously watched them many, many, many times again since, but that's probably the order for me. But Signs was a 2002 American film, as I said, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. And it basically is a story all about this family that live. So Mel Gibson's character was a priest, but has recently lost his wife to a car accident and has kind of lost his faith. His brother is then living with him while he's going through tough times with his two children, his son and his daughter. So it stars Joaquin Phoenix as his brother, Mel Gibson's brother. And it starts off the beginning of the film, and I've got some cool pictures for this one. So yeah, it kind of starts near the beginning of the film with them finding this really huge, elaborate crop circle in their farmland, because where they live out in the country and they live on a farm, and so that's kind of how we sort of like, this is in the first sort of 10 minutes of the film, and what I find interesting about this, and I said there's some interesting facets about it because. For a lot of people out there, certainly more so skeptical guys. So, we're talking like, our wikis of the world, believe that the whole thing around crop circles has been 100% explained because there was a bunch of guys in England that held their hands up and said that they were responsible for a large wave of crop circles that happened in the late 80s. I think it was it was the late 80s into the early 90s. And, I think it was two gentlemen held up their hands and said, yeah, we were part of this team of people. We designed these and we went out and did it. Yeah, sure. Nobody is denying that. But then there's a hell of a lot of crop circles, right, that are, and the ones that are more interesting, the ones that aren't intricate, and there's ones that a lot of them that haven't been explained, and also there's crop circles that have been found with traces of radioactivity in them and things like that, burn marks, so other things. So again, go back to what I was saying in a few podcasts ago, that a myth or a legend always starts somewhere. And, sure, there's humans out there that have been able to copy this phenomena or do this phenomenon, but you got to ask yourself, what did it start somewhere first? And how did that start? And yeah. Wiki's saying, I wasn't always a skeptic, and I wouldn't actually describe you as a full-blown skeptic, because I'm sure I'd hear more anger out of you if you were a full-blown 150% skeptic. When they were asked how they did crop circles without leaving tracks, those two old men claimed to have pole vaulted into the fields. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a bit of a thing where it's similar to some stuff that's gone on with the Patterson Gimlin footage of Patty, the Bigfoot, where people have come forward to explain certain things. Like there's two gentlemen that came forward to say that they were, like, one of them came forward to say that he was the guy in the suit, and kind of really brought this whole thing about debunking the whole thing. And then some further research and people investigated him and found out that actually when the footage was taken in California, he can actually be tracked as being shown that he was on the East Coast of America. And so he couldn't have been where he said he was. So things like that. But the thing with the two old men that came forward and said that they were responsible, there's people that have come forward and said, well, if they're saying that they're responsible, then get them to explain how they did some of them. And some of their explanations, as I think Courtney's trying to point out there, were a bit in themselves far-fetched. But maybe not. Maybe they were great at pole vaulting, but I don't think people can pole vault and then keep pole vaulting. I don't know. Anyway, but I'm talking about, there's a lot of crop circles, and again, there's a really good book, and if I can, or there's a really good link to all the research that's been done on crop circles, and I think I talked about it in a show once, I can't remember, but I'll try and find the link and I'll share it in the description of this podcast if I can, because it gives you more food for thought, and the ones that give you the food for thought are more like, they're just like ditches and not as elaborate and artistic as some of them that we've seen. So yeah, but it's about the other evidence that comes with it, the radioactivity, the burn marks, the indents in the floor as well. So it's not just about the crops being flat, that there's actually patterns of indented earth and solid earth as well. So lots of different interesting things. So anyway, I've got a bit off the track, but signs, let's get back to what the story is all about. So as I say, they discover this crop circle, and then weird things continue to happen. They pick up signals on baby monitors, which sound like aliens talking. There's a real scary scene, and I haven't got a picture for it, unfortunately, where, what was this one? I think I forgot to use this one. Oh yeah, sorry, this is one that I did have from, so this is the fake, so that's meant to be her acting, and then this is meant to be the real person. And yeah, just some of the acting is kind of terrible. Anyway, so yeah, there's this really good scene in Signs where he's kind of talking to his brother on the couch, and then he looks beyond him, and there's like this figure on this black figure on the top of his barn, where no person should be standing really in the middle of the night. Yeah, so there's some really interesting stuff that starts to evolve and happen. What I love about this film is it injects a little bit of comedy here and there. I love the little girl and her little tick with the glasses of water. But again, what I love about this film is it doesn't just come at you from the simple wave of alien invasion. It's got a more thought-provoking backstory to it in terms of thinking about other ways of belief, and it hails back to the whole Mel Gibson character that was previously a priest, and that form of belief, and yeah, so it's really, really interesting, but it's got some lovely comedy bits in it. So they sort of start reading these books about UFOs and wearing foil tin hats. There's some really, one of my favorite scenes of all time, where he's watching the news and this alien thing comes out from behind the bush, and this is meant to be taking place in Mexico. Yeah, and it's really cool. But yeah, there's this whole story unfolds where it's all to do with how his wife died, and the last words that she said to him, and it all comes together to sort of help save them, which then takes you into this, you know, in one element, the film is dealing with this belief of alien invasion and the existence of aliens, and then it's also dealing with the belief of something more than ourselves, and a pattern and a fate to life that is kind of what his wife says in her last words. But absolutely great film. What I love about this film as well is it's like another, it's similar to a lot of classics where less is more. They don't really show you the aliens. Even at the end of the film, what you get to see is very sort of minimal sort of outlines of shadows. Sorry, I was just going to show you another one. This is like the very last shot of one of the aliens. And again, you're kind of like trying to squint and make out what does his face exactly look like. It's a bit like Jaws. You know, that's the classic sort of Steven Spielberg move of not showing you the shark. And this film's really great at keeping you on the edge of the seat just from kind of, you know, just creating the idea and making you use your own imagination. So let's go back to some comments and see what we've got here. So from Wookie, laughable. Some people actually think that two people with boards or their feet are responsible for all the crop circles. Yeah, I don't deny that they're probably responsible for some, but you know, not, and it's all over the world as well. Just learn better methods of varying facts. Yeah, again, there's still people out there that do it, and they pride themselves on creating the more intricate designs. And I'm not saying that we as people can't do it, but I'm just saying that, again, there's two thoughts to really think about. Where did it first come from, the idea, and then two, there's some elements of crop circles that just are not easily explained by human interaction. A rare movie, alien invasion and religious faith. That's Mel Gibson for you. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Don't they come for his kids? Not specifically the kids, but yeah, they do definitely give the suggestion that they're kind of sort of telepathic in some regards. Might give signs to watch tonight. Also, have you never seen it before then, Mickey? Let us know if you've never seen it. Because I'm now asking you guys, because that's my last film. We've almost got, well, we've gone over the hour now, but that was my last film to review of my ufology thought-provoking films. So please do let me know what would be your desert island choice. So if you could only take one of those films on a desert island with you to watch, which one would you take? And you've never watched it, Mickey. Oh my God. So you're in for such a treat. It's a great film. My opinion, obviously, there's some people that differ, especially those people that are looking for high protein action films will definitely not get huge kicks out of it, but it is for me a really good classic. Great Mel Gibson at his best. The way in which the whole dialogue of this film is done, just, the craziest things are happening around these people and they're just so calm. And even Night Shyamalan, I didn't show any pictures of it, the director, he actually cameos in the film. Mel Gibson goes to his house. He was actually responsible for killing his wife on the road on his way home from work at night. But it's even when he's delivering his dialogue and he's saying, "Oh, I've just caught one," it's so, there's no panic, there's no because of the absence of over dramatizing it, it just becomes so matter of fact and feels real. Sorry about the spoilers, Mickey. Yeah, I was just thinking as I'm going on about it there, but you'll still enjoy it. Yeah, I'm sure you will. So I'm glad that there's one film that's come up that somebody hasn't seen. Again, I guess I'm sort of more moved by the psychological kind of scariness. So for me, no, I mean there are aspects that definitely, yeah, Alien gives you anxiety. It makes you kind of go on, just move, just get the door closed, quick. Yeah, that sort of horror anxiety, but not like, oh, I'm hiding behind the couch kind of horror. But yeah, guys, come on in comments, let me know which would be your desert island film, which would you take with you away. I know Maz is just about to hit the skies tomorrow morning and fly away to Turkey, so if you could take only one film with you, which one would you take? I gotta be honest with you, for me, I don't know if I could. Mickey's, yeah, I guess you didn't have to pick one of the ones that I've suggested. So if your one is that Stargate, the original with Kurt Russell in it, Courtney, let us know. Kevin's will have to be Close Encounters. Good choice, Kevin. Definitely good choice. I don't know. I think somebody would have to stick a gun to my head for me to decide on this one. But at a push, I think I would choose Contact, but I'd be watching it and thinking about Signs. I would be kind of cheating on Contact and thinking about Signs all the while. No, I think Contact definitely for me. The one thing that I always remember about Contact, the first time I ever watched it, I was lucky I watched it in the cinema, because the first time I watched Close Encounters, I didn't watch it in the cinema, but I've been, as I mentioned, and been able to watch it in the cinema since. I definitely have never seen Fire in the Sky in the cinema. That's always been a TV film that I've watched. Signs and Contact have both got to see in the cinema, but Contact, my God, on that big cinema screen, those first sort of 3 minutes where they're doing the signal leaving Earth and then going through space, it was just one of those jaw-dropping moments. Just such an amazing concept and a great way to do it, to kind of give us all the concept of how bloody huge space is, and for people to claim that we're the only intelligent life in all of that space is kind of like verges on like narcissistic, as far as I'm concerned, when you sort of realize how much space there is in space. And I think that's one of the main things that I absolutely adore and always remember about Contact. So let's have a look at comments. Oh yeah, as I said, Wiki said probably Close Encounters as well. So that's 2 for Close Encounters. All great movies, such a limited choice. Yeah, there is a lot more that I could have discussed. I'm not saying there isn't more films out there that I think that are really well worth watching this genre. There's some really recent ones as well, like Arrival. That's a really good film. And actually, funny enough, there's another film that's a much earlier 80s film with Charlie Sheen in it called The Arrival, I think. But yeah, I'm not saying that there isn't more out there that are great, but I can only squeeze so much into 1 hour, and I've already gone over time. But here's the thing, right? As I said at the top of the show, I started this journey thinking about just a quick way to come up with a subject to talk about tonight, because I've had a really, really busy week. So I thought, all right, let's talk about some films that have really inspired and influenced me on my journey and my interest into this whole field of research and investigation. And I thought, there's loads more that I've got that I couldn't fit into one show. So actually tonight's podcast was all about ufology. We'll do one in the future that's going to be thought-provoking movies part 2, and we'll do cryptid inspired movies, and then we'll do a part 3 that's going to be supernatural as well. So you can expect things like The Shining, and let's think of a key one in the cryptids. exists to appear in the Cryptid 1. So plenty more great films to talk about in the future. But yeah, cheers, Kevin. Thank you. Good night. And on that note, I'm probably going to wrap things up now as well, because I am overrunning on time and I've got to get in the hot tub because the other half has been sorting it out all day, and I need to try and use it by the end of the evening to say thank you for all the efforts trying to get the hot tub up and running again. So I'm going to jump in the hot tub. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. I won't be here with you next Sunday because I'm away with work all this week, so I won't have the time to prep and prepare for a show, so I'm going to have to miss next Sunday. I know that the Star Trek review show is going on as normal on Wednesday, so check those guys out and make sure you join them if you're a Star Trek lover. And I will be back with you as soon as possible. And don't forget, I'm working on the next episode of Underground Paradox with that investigation that I did out in Bude in Cornwall, and I'm going to be working on that as soon as I get back as well. So hopefully lots more to come from me in the future. Thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I'll see you again real soon. Have a great week, everyone, and again, thanks, and look after